Rising from the depths of obscurity, it's the return of Pixar discussions.
That's as good a place to start as any. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Fiona Ricci, and welcome to Thistle and Shamrock.
Today, the Geoff and I are going to talk about Brave, and this is the one Pixar movie that I had never seen at all. So today is my first viewing of this. We just got finished watching this minutes ago, and so I am going to be the least prepared for one of these that I ever have. And I took some notes, and I paid attention and watched the movie, but I haven't had time to get my thoughts collected and together.
Conversely, I will be about as unprepared as usual.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Well, I don't know. We'll do our level best, and we'll have a chat about Brave. Geoff, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. It's been a good long time since we've done one of these.
It's been a terribly long time.
We did a How We're Feeling It review on Inside Out over the summer. And that was the last time I think you've been on the channel, probably.
Yeah,
and
before
then
that was sort of...
Well, you were on a monkey video, but other than that,
true.
I think that was the last time you were on a review. And again, for me, it's going to be hard for this not to be kind of more like a How We're Feeling It for me, just because I'm trying to get my initial thoughts together about this thing. And anyway, so we're going to do Monsters University here pretty soon. Also, right after this, so that won't be too long after, and then
stay tuned.
Yeah, and then after that, all we have is to do the more in-depth discussion of Inside Out until
the Good Dinosaur
comes out on video. Yeah. So anyway, back to Pixar discussions, and then after that, Geoff and I are planning another thing for you too. So for the 12 people that will care. So anyway, Geoff, let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we?
Do that.
So Brave is, in my estimation, basically Pixar trying to do a traditional Disney movie not traditionally.
I think that sums it up well. They are approaching this sort of monolithic thing that the Disney Corporation has made a great deal of bones off of.
Yeah.
Over the centuries. But being Pixar, they're going to do it their way. They're going to do their level best to apply a Pixar level of storytelling and story organizing to the project. And they're going to avoid as many of the most egregious, it's pronounced egregious, failings that the Disney's sort of storybook princess movies tend to have.
Well, and cliches too, I think. I mean,
that's probably a better word.
I felt, well, failings definitely. I'm saying both. I'm adding a thing, not correcting you, because I feel like there is a there's a clear. I mean, I feel like I can see it in the story. There's like a clear attempt at separating this and making sure that the audience knows that they're not just watching another 90s princess Disney movie. And I guess this is our first Pixar princess.
Or in a way, it's almost as if this movie really hopes that if, like, one person out in the universe has never seen any of the standard Disney princess movies, that they could watch this and then wonder why the next Disney princess movie they happen to see isn't like this.
Yeah, where there's, I felt like what I was watching was basically Princess Jasmine if she had a personality.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, because it is that, at least for her, and of course that movie's not about her, but for her it's that exact same kind of story where there are suitors and she's the princess, and so she's supposed to be betrothed to one, and that keeps the kingdom together and all. I mean, it's that exact same setup that you see. That we've seen 100 times in these, but to be fair, certainly not just Disney princess things. Yeah. That's a princess thing
in general.
Just going all over, and
the princess,
and not
as
just
the
in
stock
fiction,
literary figure, is
literary and also historically even. Certainly that comes from a place.
The object of desire, not the subject of a sentence. A person who, things are done to or done for, rather than a person who does things or makes choices. And Pixar's trying really hard to make their princess an actual character rather than simply a prop for the hero and the villain to fight over.
I mean, remember that most of Queen Elizabeth's rule was just people trying to get her to get married. You know what I mean? So there's tons of this in history.
People
naturally
couldn't handle the concept
that a woman was ruling the king, and for as long as she did too, because she was in her 70s.
Rock on, Bessie.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth's probably my favorite historical figure of.
Miranda Richardson's my favorite Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah. I like her name's escaping me right now. Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett. Yeah, I don't know why I can't say is her name. I don't like that approach, but I liked her in the role. Fair enough. That makes any sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress.
But back to this curly redhead.
Yeah. This was a really I spent the whole time just being kind of surprised by the choice. Just that, like, we're gonna make a movie about Scotland, and it's gonna be this period, and I mean, it felt a little bit like.
Which period exactly is that?
Well, I don't know. That's a really good question.
I don't either.
I kept wondering that myself, but I just this period in going back to, I was gonna say. I don't know. Is it? I honestly, and maybe I'm just because I'm not a big history buff. I couldn't even tell if we were BC or AD. Honestly,
and there is this is summed up really well. Someone on TV Tropes worked this out.
Okay.
I haven't memorized the page, so I'm not going to pretend that this is my knowledge. But under Anachronisms stew, there's this beautiful list of things in this movie that are sort of take it for granted medieval, old-timey Scottish clanny kingdom fixtures, and they range from the mid-18th century to prehistory.
Okay. Well, in
particular, bears haven't been in the British Isles, apparently, since long before recorded history.
Well, could we make the case that because I mean, like, I don't know if you've looked at any of the of the special features or the extra material, and of course I just watched the movie, so I haven't seen any interviews, but I could sort of see the case that was on purpose. And that this is like a fantasy thing before it's anything, where you basically just take Scotland and you make it like a Lord of the Rings thing, where it's like you make it sort of like Middle Earth, where it's like it's on Earth but it's not on Earth, and because I mean once you throw magic in the mix,
like the Philip Pullman books.
Yeah.
A world like ours, but not the same as ours. And you almost have to.
And I think a lot of the reason that we're trying to fit it into history is just because, well, it seems to be Scotland, and they've got Scottish accents and...
Very wildly varying Scottish accents, I should point out.
Yeah, it's all over the map, but...
Including, and this is... I saved this up for just now. The one fellow, MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Who
was voiced by Kevin McKidd.
Yeah. The unintelligible guy.
Yeah.
That is actually a genuinely existing Scots dialect. There's a region in Scotland where people do talk that way.
So they're kind of making fun of that.
And, as I understand, even other Scots people find it very difficult to understand.
Yeah, and they made fun of that in the film, where the guy sitting next to him was like, I have no idea. Right? Yeah.
Turns out that's a real thing.
It reminds me of that guy from what is it, Boomhauer? Yeah, it was like Boomhauer.
The guy on King of the Hill.
King of the Hill, yeah. I haven't thought of that show in years.
But yeah, to put Billy Connolly, Emma Thompson, and Kelly MacDonald side by side, not being a great expert in dialects in general, but it was really hard for my ear to believe that those three people
were a family?
Directly related by accent, because no two of them are even a little bit alike.
Well, especially because you're talking about parents that raised a child, and how does she have a different accent than they do? And again, was that on purpose, or was it just this is a hard movie to make because you're not actually casting Scots, you're casting you're casting trained voice actors to play Scots?
Billy Connolly may actually be Scottish.
Well, I'm just saying not all of them. I don't right off know who that is, so I'm just but like if you I'm a little bit surprised by that, because Pixar has a long history, and they're very proud of this, of not casting actors because they're famous and because people know about them and looking for that kind of name recognition. You'd think that maybe you would just, I don't know, get Scottish actors, all of them, and get them all from the same region, and if that's what you're going to do. But again, it makes me wonder if it's on purpose. Because if we got them all to sound different, and then it looks like this weird hodgepodge mishmash of history.
Maybe that's camouflage.
Almost like a comic crisis kind of thing, where you just mashed up a bunch of dimensions together and got this version of Scotland.
It's like you're not going to be able to get it really consistent.
So they're just
you run with the inconsistency so that we just, okay, there it is.
Well, what it affords you is very distinct performances. It makes each of these characters separately very memorable. You don't have to look at the screen to know who's talking.
It feels like they said to Billy Connolly and Emma Thompson and Kelly MacDonald, okay, you're in Scotland several centuries ago. Run with whatever you think that is, and do it what you think is well.
It honestly makes me wonder if how many of them were in the same room as they were doing their performances, right?
Yeah.
And again, I almost hate having this conversation, having not looked at the special features, but it kind of makes you wonder, like was everybody, because oftentimes they are. But like, wouldn't you start to affect the other people in the room?
Because it would bleed. I mean, I can't watch this movie
without
picking up bits and traces in weird, awkward ways.
Well, don't we all
have to be scrubbed back off? So
I think we all tend to do that sometimes with languages, or sorry, with accents that we're not used to hearing, especially accents that we like a lot. You know, like I was in a store yesterday and was Christmas shopping, and I was checked out by a girl with a British accent. And I caught myself accidentally starting to do one. Yeah. And I was like, why am I doing that? Like, that would be so offensive. Why would you do it? Like, it wasn't on purpose. It's just you talk to somebody for a minute.
A mannerism, a sound, a word or two kind of seeps in, latches hold. So they may almost have had to have kept them really separate.
Who knows? Yeah. Well, I mean,
keep that distinct, but
I'm sure there is some knowing. But yeah. Anyway,
it would be really.
As
funny.
I said, I'm not real prepared for this.
It would be really funny if the brilliant scene towards the beginning where Merida is talking to her horse, and the Queen Eleanor is talking to King whatchamazog, and they're having this
doing it on purpose. Susan.
That they're having this discussion kind of between each other, but by proxy with these other people, and they're kind of edit cut together to make it feel like a conversation.
Yeah.
It'd be really funny if they were in the same room recording that.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I hadn't thought of that until you brought it up. But yeah, they were doing really different accents, and okay. So, why don't we just get into kind of broad, do we like this one or not, and then get a little bit more into some story stuff and some nitty gritty and stuff. I don't know yet. It was a fun experience. At the moment, it's definitely toward the bottom of my list. Like, I wasn't ultra impressed with it. And there's some stuff, especially toward the end, where I was like, you guys seem to be going out of your way to be atypical, and then it started to feel a little typical, and I don't know how I feel about it. But like when I saw previews for this one and saw that that Pixar was making this kind of movie, I was like, that looks really typical for you guys. And then I saw it, and I don't know, it feels that way a little bit. And there are places where even the humor seems very not Pixar and a little, and I mean, I don't mean to say that, we have to do things the same way all the time, but like a little cruder than it usually gets. And I mean, they still did some of that stuff more tastefully than I have seen in some early DreamWorks stuff, and even I guess some more recent ones, but
we're still a billion times more classy than, say, any of the Shrek movies.
I mean, I guess you could sort of make the case that, because it's like a really early period, and maybe people are just less less civilized on the whole. But then you're talking about royalty, and the whole point is that they're more civilized than everybody else. And
well, and the conflicts between the extremely prim and civilized Queen Eleanor and the extremely rough and rowdy King dude, huge guy.
but I love that guy.
Fergus.
Yeah, Fergus. That's right. He's great. He was my favorite character. So, at the very beginning of the movie, I said, hey, look, that guy's Hagrid's eyes. And then it turns out he's voiced by the guy who did Hagrid. Of course.
He's voiced by Billy Connolly. Hagrid was...
Oh, I thought you said he was Hagrid. So Hagrid's
Robbie
in it, but not that guy?
one of the lairds.
Oh, that's hilarious. So Hagrid's in it, but he's not playing the guy that looks like Hagrid.
Right.
Okay, good to know.
I forget which one he was.
I just got finished watching this movie. Anyway, so I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I liked it a lot. I don't think it's the best of the Pixar movies. But then again, that's still...
Is it holding up for you on repeat viewings, or is it better on repeat viewings? Because like I said, I feel weird talking about it without seeing it a second time, and so I'm a little bit reserved right now, but...
I'd say it holds up pretty well. There are bits of it that... some bits that I just did not love the first time I saw it that are growing on me. There's things in it...
Like a Fergus.
Yeah.
It's growing on you like a...
Yeah. Like a... Ugh. There's some things have risen and some things have fallen, but it's holding its place in my head. I say I wouldn't call it the best Pixar movie ever, but I don't think it's the worst Pixar movie ever. And the worst Pixar movie ever is still a better movie than an awful lot of other movies I could name but won't.
Which, from our discussions, you're going to call what? Cars 2?
I think that would have to be Cars 2, yeah.
Over anything else. I mean, I know you like Bugs Life a little better than I do, but
yeah,
that's probably second or third for me. But anyway.
Because again, even a pretty crummy Pixar movie
is a solid movie.
We have characters that make sense an awful lot of the time. There's the one or two scenes in this where there's the forced conflict because people don't listen to each other.
Yeah.
And the...
But we get over that faster than we do in some other things.
It's not what you think scene.
Yeah. Well, that was my big one. I wrote that down. I thought... I always say... Let me stop for a second and talk about this. I always hate it when somebody in a scene, when somebody walks in on them, says, it's not what you think, because you're not saying... anything. Yeah. Like what you should lead with what it is. And I mean, like, you could make the case when a moment a person is like not expecting that person would even believe them or know what they're talking about or whatever. But I mean, like, if it were me, I'd have a hard time not immediately blurting out, "No, don't kill the bear. That's your wife." Like, how would that not be naturally the first thing you would think to say? No, it's not what you think.
100% of the time when someone says it's not what you think, the person they said that to reacts in a way as if to say, "Shut up! It's exactly what I think."
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's not gonna do anything.
4 wasted words.
Yeah. And also, it was what he thinks because it was A, bear, and B, a bear that some of the time falls prey to its carnal instincts and is not actually still the mother in charge. So some of the time,
bears are dangerous.
Yeah. Look how dangerous that bear is. That bear's so dangerous.
Well, I thought we needed a bear's perspective.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I don't know. He seems pretty happy with it, but I think just because there were bears in it.
Which is what the queen says when she's a bear.
See, I don't think that doesn't look like a demon bear to me.
No. I really like how expressive her ears are when she's a bear. Real bears' ears move that way, but I thought that was a really good example for all you aspiring animators, how to help your character visually communicate.
Well, what it made me want to do, of course, was go back to the beginning and see the expressiveness of her in human form and compare them.
Because in some ways, I think she's more expressive as a bear than as a human.
Well, certainly that's because she's trying to be prim, proper, and reserved, and As a bear, she's forced to find that within herself to communicate at all because she can't use her words.
And at the same time, very gradually forced to realize that a lot of her primness and propriety.
Oh, is that word? Yeah, I guess that's that word.
Apparently, I can't say that word.
You should put the bear down. You're turning into a bear. That's terrifying. You are a demon bear, Geoff. That's
gradually falls away from him.
That was great.
I mean, she devolves. You know, she starts really thinking of her. Even after she's realized she's a bear, she's still trying to get clothes to cover herself.
Yeah.
She's worried about being naked. She's still got to keep track of that crown because she needs to keep track of who she is at all times as a human. Keeping track of who she is and what her role is. That's what she's about.
Well, that's a good point. I guess
so she keeps trying to do that as a bear, and it
I
keeps
questioned
not working.
the crown thing at first, but that idea is making more sense the more I'm thinking about it. I'm glad that we lost it eventually, for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's the first moment where she actually transforms into a straight up bear. But before that, the big thing I questioned was just how she kept it on her head.
Yeah.
I just didn't even see how
the geometry of that is a
is a totally other thing.
Gave her quite the wrong shaped head for for keeping a crown on.
Yeah.
But so there's a visual point off to compensate for the plus visual point of the bear of her ears.
I mean, I can live with some cartoon physics here and there, but I guess if it's consistent, but I guess the problem is that this is a world that more or less seems to have kind of realistic physics, and I guess Pixar usually has that. It's the same kind of question sometimes that we talked about with Toy Story, where we're like, okay, how much of real life physics should we really expect? And then with
how
this,
much can I buy falling with style?
And then falling in this too,
or
really,
falling through all of that rock into the bottom of that pit with no broken bones
and not break anything. When I didn't think of that, and Geoff brings this up while we're watching it, and then I'm like, well, you would know because Geoff just broke his leg last year, and so Geoff immediately goes, you would have broken a bunch of bones, and like 2 years ago, you might have even missed that. Like,
well, I fell a third that distance and ended up in emergency. That I don't know. I see these things now.
Oh yeah, it puts things into perspective.
But it's kind of that cartoon thing again, where.
But I guess the thing is, when you have magic and mysticism, and you can use that for making as a conceit to make plot stuff happen, then you kind of expect the rest of the physics to work.
It's kind of the mushrooms make you big effect.
And I mean, again, it's not a giant deal. I'm basically just complaining that there's a crown on a bear's head that doesn't fall off. It's not that big of a deal.
The movie just told me that eating a cake can transform you into another species.
Yeah, when it's made by a witch who has single-handedly invented the 20th century business model.
She has voicemail. I love that scene.
That was my favorite thing in the whole movie. Was that witch is way ahead of its time, and ahead of her time. And I think the reason that, and like the Vial 1, Vial 2. Okay, here's why I loved that. So we're just jumping over it. Here's the reason I love that so much, because I complain all the time about like I keep going to Aladdin. So let's go back to Aladdin. You got Robin Williams. Rest his soul, in Aladdin, voicing the genie and making all of these. Of course, he improvised that entire thing, and he's making all of these references to modern stuff, and that only works if you can kind of imagine the notion that because he's this sort of out of time sort of figure, maybe he's been there or can see the future or something, and so he just makes all these jokes that nobody else would get. But so often of the time, Disney makes this mistake, and a lot of other things do this too, where DreamWorks does it all the time, where you have characters that are making a lot of pop culture references that nobody should get because it hasn't happened yet, and it seems like just kind of easy.
Not part of that universe.
And
it's part of ours, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, and it seems like kind of cheap, easy comedy. Here, it works because it's not a straight-up reference. She's not like she's not saying things like Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Quest for Camelot. I always hated that. Yeah.
And there again, this is not the farthest out anachronism in the movie. Even close.
Yeah.
compared to the the different types of weapons they have that all come from different centuries.
Oh, that's actually a really good point.
Clothing that the princess and the queen wear could not have been made before a certain point when sewing technology was that good.
Think of
Some
that.
of the fabrics didn't exist.
So maybe it almost gets away with that just because we're already mixing a bunch of... I mean, we're talking almost Batman 89 level of I don't know what period I'm in because it's supposed to be ambiguous.
The Scotch games are Canadian.
See, this
19th century.
This has got to be on purpose because these guys, and I mean, we've still got Lasseter on as producer. We've got a lot of the veterans for Pixar working on this thing. These guys have an attention to detail and they pay attention to the stuff and they do a lot of research. And clearly, they've had to go do a lot of scouting of landscapes and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, towards the beginning when they're introducing the different clans and you have one guy, they battled the Vikings. And the Romans.
How does that work? So this is on purpose, clearly.
So surely they know they're doing that.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of fun.
Compared to that 800-year gap, answering machines are like nothing on the anachronism scale.
But and you're right, and then even still, you can easily look at it as, okay, it is clearly a reference, but the witch doesn't know that. Like, it's not an awkward kind of reference. And
you can buy it as actually being part of this story's world.
And I think why it's fun is because it's the only time it happens. Yeah. If the movie was relying on that kind of humor the whole way through, but we do it a couple times, and it's clever when it happens. Like I said, Vial 1, Vial 2, that's really funny.
Well, there's a way of delivering that kind of a joke that either allows you to buy it as a part of the context that it's in, or else as, hey, look at me being clever with my cute 20th century reference. 21st, excuse me.
Well, yeah.
And, like stuff like the Ice Age movies or the Shrek movies are always doing it in the second way. They always want me to be amused, not because what they did was actually funny, but because I'm supposed to find it amusing that something from my modern existence showed up in a fairy tale or a glacier, Ice Age mammoth or something.
Yeah. And it's because it's humor with no context.
Yeah. It's humor with no content. It's humor that just said, attention, I'm telling a joke. You're supposed to laugh now. Okay, sir. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And
we're not making a 70s sitcom here.
Yeah. And this is the difference, and that's a distinction that I would love to see more of the people writing films and TV shows get a grip on, because comedy would be an awful lot funnier.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into the basic...
Let's talk about this movie.
Let's get into the basic story premise for a minute and talk about how it's trying to separate itself from what came before and how it's trying to be more sophisticated and whether or not it's achieving that. I think the best thing about this movie, and premise-wise, but also just the film in general, I think the very, very best thing about this movie is that, the parents are characters. The parents are real characters, and both of them. But this is a mother-daughter story, but they don't have to throw the dad under the bus either. I like him. I like that she is, even though she wouldn't want to admit it, she'd rather think that she's just her father's daughter. But she's not. She is a really good conglomeration of both, and you see both sides of that in her. And I think part of the reason that's compelling and why I like it is because, well, I like the parents too. This is actually a family unit that's working. It's not any more dysfunctional than the most functional family I've ever seen behind closed doors.
And they're all fairly real people.
Yeah, I think so too.
None of them are stock figures. The mother is sympathetic and antagonistic at the same time.
Because people are that sometimes. And
has a point of view that makes sense. You can see his frustration. You can see that what he really wants and what he doesn't really want. And you can see him struggling to figure out a way to to do what is needed of him.
And he almost is as much of a problem as she is in a way, because he lacks assertiveness and she has all the kind of power in the relationship. And, that's kind of encapsulated by the numerous times that he gets up in front of people and can't make words happen. And I like that a lot. That was really funny.
And she's right there to take over for him because, they're a couple and couples are like that.
Yeah. Sure. Well, and you've also got kind of that classic thing, and I don't think that they made it too stereotypical of the woman behind the powerful man, and the thing is, when you have a guy like that, I mean, there's a reason he's so big. When you like he's intimidating when he needs to be, but the reason he's so big is because it's really easy to live a life of leisure when you've got somebody smarter than you that's kind of able to help steer you in a direction and make all the good things. She's not an evil person, you know what I mean? But like,
she's like a pretty wicked queen.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I mean, like, you notice that he spends a lot of his time just kind of kicking back and eating a lot and drinking a lot, and I mean, his heart's still in the right place. Huge. He's not just like a totally lazy, terrible person who doesn't care about his kingdom. It's not like that. But you also do see kind of the leisurely lifestyle creeping in, and he's kind of, he's relying on that stuff.
Plus, he's huge.
But
he's naturally huge, and I think that's too why the strong woman, weak husband thing doesn't in this movie come off as the plastic annoying stereotype that it almost always does when Hollywood does this.
Yeah.
It's because he's not a weak character. He's a perfectly fine character. Mm-hmm. He does things, he makes decisions, he takes action. Some of them are smarter than others, but he is not a weak character overshadowed by his strong wife. He's just strong at some things, and she's strong at some other things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why real people work in collections, because everybody's like that.
Yeah, I mean, the movie's called Brave. The bravery that she has, that she ultimately comes to have a better understanding of what it is and how she got it by the end of the movie, doesn't come just from the father or just from the way. It's from both sides, and it's kind of a physical and a mental thing where he teaches her how to do the physical stuff, and that's part of where she. It's sort of a chicken and the egg thing, but I think that's part of where she gets the her independence from, and not wanting to. And again, this is kind of your typical princess thing, but they make it more complex.
The roots of her character come from both of her parents and are synthesized in her to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But her task in this story is to synthesize mentally and emotionally and humanly the human traits of each that are in her into a whole.
Yeah.
She has to do mentally the integration that genetics did in the making of her genetic thingy and something about the stork.
Well, so when I was saying that the best thing about this movie was the parents are real people, going together with that too, it's that, and it's also that we finally, for the first time, and I think it's so cool that this is still technically a Disney movie, right? It's Pixar, but Disney is still kind of behind Pixar, so we get a movie with Disney's logo on it, where finally we're actually playing both sides of the argument of sacrificing what you want for your family versus going off and doing whatever you want to, because you should be able to be an independent person and have your own wants and dreams and desires and go off and try to achieve them. And this meets us someplace in the middle, as opposed to just straight up giving her what she wants because we all want to be independent and free. And it kind of ultimately does come down to that place at the end, but you never see the argument on the other side of why it's really so important, or at least when you do, it's kind of just the obvious stuff and just there so that the father, and it's usually a father again, Aladdin, you got the Sultan, he's not a bad person or anything, but it's just, well, this is what you're supposed to do, and I see both of those sides being.
Both of those sides are real here in a way that they aren't in the Disney princess movies. I think of The Little Mermaid. I compare Merida's argument with her mother with Ariel's argument with her father.
Mm-hmm.
Another singing redhead.
There's a lot of those.
Funny thing. But in one of these cases, the conflict is real, the dispute is real, and it's between real people.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them have a side that we care about. Whereas in the other one...
And we have a hard time coming down one or the other.
Whereas in the other one, the other side of the argument exists only to provide the necessary wall for us to push against.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So
it's just manufactured conflict, yeah.
And here's what happens when Pixar does a princess movie.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are real people, and they act for usually real reasons.
And importantly, this is, I would argue, again, just having seen it the one time, a dual protagonist story before it's a straight up, singular protagonist movie. This is not just about the girl who figures out how to go her own way and get to make her own destiny. I would have paid this movie money to not have voiceovers. I would have paid it money.
Go that direction next.
We'll talk about that then, because that is one of the big things that just absolutely drove me insane. But you do have that, but then you also have the mother who gets to physically live her side of it by becoming a bear. Okay, yeah.
A couple of things that I really dislike about this movie. The first and the biggest is the title.
Oh, really? I mean, I just haven't noodled that much yet.
Because it seems like it has something to do with this story, but the farther it goes, the more times I see it, the more I think about the story, and the more I live with those characters, the less pertinent it seems.
Yeah, that's fair.
And in a similar vein is is all of the sort of philosophically talk, bookending it about fate and destiny. And the first time I watched this, I was kind of able to buy it. But every time I've seen this movie over the intervening 2,000 years, it just rings hollower and hollower to me until by this point, all of that stuff seems like BS to me. What do you mean destiny? What do you mean fate? What do you mean changing fate?
Yeah.
What do you mean by fate in the first place? And can you possibly mean that if you put change in the same sentence with the word?
No, and honestly...
To say you can change your fate...
I didn't like it from the very beginning. Then it isn't fate in the first place, yeah.
Neither the change nor the fate is actually real. It means you're using words to not mean things now.
Yeah.
And it annoys me when...
Well, I mean, and here's the thing, because...
talk like that.
Dealing with superhero stuff, I have to deal with this idea all the time. Yeah. Like it comes up constantly. And with, I think you can define it, and then it's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, the question of whether humankind has free will is actually a pretty deep and difficult one.
Yeah.
And it depends on finding a way to define all the terms involved in such a way that you can actually speak sentences that mean things on the subject, for better or worse. And this kind of easy fate, destiny-changing hero movie kind of stuff...
It does...
rinses that all down the drain and just makes some noises that sound like deep thinking that are in fact just noise.
Yeah, and again, I see that all the time, and often bookended in voiceover in a lot of superhero movies. It's so out of place here.
Yeah.
Because it's so thoughtful about other stuff. It's really thoughtful about character stuff. I don't know why that's there.
The story is so strong without that, without even going to that place.
And at the very least, I mean, Pixar movies have by and large been subtle enough about. I mean, I'm not saying that they're the most subtle things in the world, but have been subtle enough about the ideas and what we're supposed to, in what we're supposed to be allowed to let ourselves take from them. In deciding what the point of it is and what the message is. That to come out at the very end and sort of just spell out a message seems so disingenuous to me. Can you think of another time in Pixar movie we've done that? Do we come out and tell people what the movie was about?
This is why I didn't like Cars 2.
Does it do that?
with all that stuff.
But it doesn't do it with a voiceover, but it does it in expository dialogue in the middle of a chase scene or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the part of Cars 2 that was the big problem to me. And
yeah, because it's telling the audience what they're supposed to take from it, and feels a lot like the movie not trusting that it's delivered, whatever its message is, enough just within the confines of the story that it's overcompensating now, and it's hoping that you'll walk away going, oh, it was about something, and then hoping that you'll forget that you're thinking that because it told you it was. But this movie, A, doesn't need to do that because it already is about plenty, and B, I don't think that what it's telling me it's about is what it's about.
Exactly. They don't connect, and in one way they can't because there's zero content statements to begin with. And another way,
all you have to do is define fate as what you're expected to do. All you have to do is say that this is what you're. But then at that point, it's not fate so much as rules. But
and then let's not use the word fate. And use a word that's accurate.
I mean, was the point of the tapestries supposed to be here's what's expected, and then we're able to get away from that? So then the tapestry changes. Is that the whole idea?
There's a unity that should be, and it is broken by someone's bad action, and needs to be mended.
And then it is mended.
And in the case of in the mythic legend case of the Four Princes, it never gets mended, and so he becomes a demon bear.
Okay, and that's how that fits in. I hadn't quite put together what the point
of
the
our case
was. Thank you.
In the story case, it almost doesn't get mended, in which case Eleanor would have remained a wild bear forever and be lost to them entirely. But because
they suffered the same fate as the demon bear, probably.
And probably become a demon bear herself.
Yeah.
Which meant that Mordi would have had a girlfriend.
Oh, well,
and
that's
cubs.
Fascinating, actually. Uh-huh.
Think about that for a sequel. Well,
and then what might we have done with the cubs we had already? Because we already,
because they would have been cubs too.
They would have stuck bears. Yeah, and they might have been stuck bears, and then maybe they would have made one big family, even though they didn't actually have them together. And that would have been a really weird scene. If this had had a darker ending that was less optimistic and less of a happy ending, that would have been where everything was going.
Yeah. And she'd have eaten them all.
Hilarious. But yeah, I don't think the movie is ultimately all that much about like breaking fate and going and also
it's about screwing up your life because you are mad about something, mad at somebody, and causing a big mess, and then find a way to fix it.
Well, the point is that both of them are making mistakes, right? The mother and the daughter can't come up with a compromise, and that's why all of this ends up happening in the first place.
Both of them have to change.
Yeah.
Hence, dual protagonist.
And hence, getting us to where I thought we would be going the whole movie because of what kind of story this is, and I mean, you can't help but kind of expect, and you hope that it would subvert this, that you'd have a big ending scene with a big speech about independent, about being independent and going your own way, and the rules.
We sure learned an important lesson today, Captain.
Yeah, the rules need to be allowed to change and that kind of thing, and then
I decree that the princess will marry whoever she wants.
Yeah, exactly, and that happens halfway into the movie.
Yeah.
And so the problem is if you start talking about like fate versus free will and you can go your own way at the end and stuff like that, then what the movie itself with that, unless I'm missing something, with that voiceover seems to kind of be forgetting is that the point isn't she was right all along. Yeah. Right? I mean, like, she has a point, and she's right about some things, but she went about it the wrong way.
And she was wrong about some other things.
And let's remember that she keeps...
Like a human.
Let's remember that she keeps having to suffer the consequences for these choices all the way through. Like, there's not one thing that she does that would be considered irresponsible that there's not some sort of a consequence for. When she leaves that cake out and tells those kids to go help themselves, they turn into bears also. And it's interesting that the consequences to most of her big blunders are somebody turns into a bear. Yeah. But you get to the end of the movie and it's not about she was right about the fate. And the thing is, her speech at the end is almost exactly her speech at the beginning.
Yep.
Or at least that's what it felt like while I was watching
it. Both are exactly nothing.
But yeah, I mean, like...
Their content is equivalent.
And again, like, I sympathize with that perspective, and I see why she did what she did, and I have to sympathize with that or I'm not going to appreciate her. I'm mostly just complaining about... I mean, she's even got the really whiny, why me, you're not, this is unfair moment, and it seemed less whiny than it does in most things to me, because I understood... I understood
real teenagers should be this unannoying about
I understood why. Well, the thing is, in that scene, the delivery was exactly the way I would have expected it in something like this, or like, you know, a CW teen drama thing. But then we had already developed this character to a place where I understood where she was coming from, and also I saw the other side of it.
Yeah.
And her mother was already becoming a real person, and so at that point, suddenly they can give her all that stock dialogue, and it's not stock anymore.
Yeah. Because she is a real person. I'm getting going somewhere with this.
Go ahead.
And that's we can sympathize with both sides. That's one of the very big, very important, very beautiful things that fiction can do for us. Present us these situations. Show us these conflicts in a light that enables us to see and empathize with both sides. That in turn gives us some experience in doing that maybe make it a little easier for us to empathize with both sides of the conflicts that are in our real life between us and other people.
Mm-hmm.
They are both people, and you know the princess should marry whoever she wants speech, dead center in this movie, does not solve the problem.
No,
it does not end the story. The political solution is not the solution.
Well, and it's a character piece, and it's not just about the
It's about these people finding a way to deal with each other and coming to terms with each other. It's the personal relationship.
Yeah.
Not some political or social moral scheme. That's the real issue here, and that's something I really, really like about the movie.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I mean, it's easy to kind of lose the character study stuff when you have this kind of a backdrop of here's the stakes and they're so high, and it's ultimately not, I mean, I just thought it was fascinating to resolve that halfway through.
Yeah.
That there's a moment where there could be war, and then it's not about that anymore, because also we have rooted this in a mystical solution and then conflict for a thing.
Yeah.
Right at the very beginning, and so that's really where it needs to resolve at the end, and with the demon bear and with the mother being turned into a bear and all that stuff. This is about this woman getting to experience the other side and understand why her daughter feels the way she does, and so it's got to end there and be about that by the end, and so that mystical thing needs to kind of bookend it. I will say that I did not really buy her mother as the bear, and again, the one time I've seen it, I didn't really buy her coming around on that early. Like in the moment, I didn't know where it came from. It's like you've been a bear for a while, and you're you're kind of, I just don't know that she was there long enough to, because I didn't see it yet. It wasn't until farther into the movie that I realized that the whole point of that was she's understanding the pros to living on the wild side, as it were. That her and like why her daughter wants that kind of freedom. I felt like she needed to be doing that longer. I just didn't really understand why she came around already to you should get to be with whoever you want to.
Yeah, and I'm having trouble coming up with a reason that worked so quickly for her beyond just we need that issue to resolve here, because that's not yet the central issue of the movie.
And then it makes me question if I even buy that the girl would already be turned around also. Because in the moment she was ready to go ahead and do what her mother wanted, and the mother was ready to go ahead and let her have what she wanted. And I'm just not sure if I'm buying either. And again, it feels like I love that it subverted the expectations the way it did, but because it feels like it's the end of some other movie, it felt really rushed. And then it's like, well, that's the point, is that we're not finished resolving this character stuff. But the problem is, it felt like it was resolved for a minute, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, but I don't know if I'm right about this. I need to watch it again. But that was a thing. In the moment, I questioned it.
That might prove to be a tricky hinge.
I understand her side of it a little bit more. Because she's realizing that she's made mistakes, and that it's her fault that all this happened, and if only she had stuck to her mother's plan in the first place, that wouldn't have happened. But obviously, that's not everything she needs to learn. It's not just learn your place and shut up a little. It's not that. Yeah. So I don't know. But I'm asking questions. I'm just not sure.
And it's just as it's not. There's a really beautiful turn between where once her mother is transformed, she at first keeps saying to everybody who she wants to say it to, "It's not my fault."
Yeah.
And at a point, she comes to the realization that, yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there we get to see her. There we get to see her grow in the way that she needs to, or begin the process. I thought that was really nice.
I mean, I think I'm liking the movie on the whole more as we're talking about it, but it does feel a little clunky to me in places.
Yeah, and it also is one of those movie-making stories where halfway into plotting and making this story, the story people were fired and replaced.
Oh, really?
And other people were brought in to
that probably hurt it.
Reshuffle it. So
I bet that's where the voiceover bookend comes from. You can't tell me that was there in the first place. I mean, I'd have a hard time buying it.
Well, it's the mark of this being shaped by conflicting visions of what the movie is for and what it's about, and how it intends to do what it's about.
What else did you want to talk about, Jeff? I'm looking at my notes here, and it looks like most of what we've been talking about is kind of here already. So,
the visually got yet again some spectacular visuals.
Yeah.
Backdrops and scenery.
I mean, I've become almost numb to it, to a place where you just sort of expect it now, and you look at these like really lush, brilliant backdrops, and you forget that you're watching a cartoon, which is the point of it. And like it feels like you're just looking at scenery, but like it makes me almost less impressed. And I mean, I'm not criticizing it, but I mean, like we've come to a place now where it's like they went and shot it, so it's harder to in the moment be as impressed with the spectacle. You almost have to keep reminding yourself, oh yeah, somebody had to render this.
You almost have to, in between, go watch some 60s and 70s Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah, or even the first Toy Story movie. You
that.
You go because there's been a progression of our discussion about the digital animation where we are just spoiled now. We take it for granted, and I find it very difficult not to.
Well, exactly. Or even
because at this point you have expectations. If it didn't look as good as you expect it to, you'd be sandblasting it. For people, you're Pixar. What's wrong? But when it's up to spec, it's hard to be impressed with it because that's what you already think it's supposed to be doing.
They did the big innovation for this one, apart from the fact that they actually rebuilt their entire rendering engine for this movie.
Oh wow, interesting.
The rendering system they'd been using for 25 years or something.
Super outdated.
They recoded from scratch.
Wow.
So this is the first product of a total upgrade of their computer infrastructure. Not that that's supposed to matter to us watching the movie, but
sure
it is.
No, but it's an interesting note, yeah.
And the big place that shows is that this is the first digital animated movie or conventional animated movie, for that matter, that I can think of that handles hair acceptably.
Yeah. It looks really good.
Because you look at
and really believable
shaped helmets that the Incredibles or the Toy Story family had.
I mean, you chalk that up to style, just being a stylistic thing. Like I'm not looking at that and going, hey, how come the hair's not animated? Actually moving.
You took it as part of the style because and if we thought about it, we realized because rendering that is unimaginably complex.
But yeah, it's a thing you can do now. Yeah.
And they figured out a way to do it, and it looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Even compared to the Incredibles, you think of Violet, and they talk in the behind the scenes featurettes in the Incredibles about the risk they deliberately took in giving Violet hair as long as they did, instead of giving her a helmet hairstyle like everybody else in the world. And then they showed some of the test loops and stuff trying to get that to work in a way that made any sense, and it still doesn't work great in the movie. But here's where the next big level of effort in making digital animation able to make things look really good.
If you completely avoid it and you don't take the risk of maybe it's not going to look perfect, you're never going to innovate to get there.
I mean,
that's what innovation is. You've got to experiment, but the problem is the really tricky and sticky thing is you're innovating inside of a giant, expensive Hollywood movie that's expected to make a lot of money. Yeah, it has to look good.
It has to bring in a lot of money to cover the enormous cost of doing it.
So then there are these corners you have to cut, and it's weird.
I'm still. One of my worries for Pixar is that at some point they will get to that point where a bean counter takes over and says, okay, you know what? We need to now start doing things less well than we could to cut the cost and increase the profit margin.
And I think that is a somewhat fair worry because Pixar has.
When has that ever not happened in history?
Well, and I mean, I don't want to get stuck on this before we close out here, but I do want to talk about this for a second because it's the thing. It is a fair concern because you can see Pixar making some choices, even in what movies to do when, based on merchandising and keeping things in the public eye. We're making more Toy Story movies, not necessarily because we already had a story to tell, but more because, well, they sell really well, but B, we're constantly putting out merchandise and stuff for that, and so you want to keep it in the public consciousness, and I really think that's the reason that we keep making Cars movies.
Yep.
And it's obviously the reason the Planes franchise happened.
Yeah.
Well, that's my review of Planes. But yeah. So I can see why you'd be concerned about that because obviously, and it's difficult not to, right? I mean, I can, once again, two sides of this argument. I can sympathize with this because when you have something that gets this super successful and you're trying to maintain that. And it's a business on top of obviously of a storytelling medium. Yeah, how do you maintain that? How do you keep it?
How do you keep from
these against huge expectations?
Allowing anyone to get into the boss's chair, who is one of those people who takes for granted that dropping quality.
And that quality is how you got there in the first place. Yeah. That's the business you're in is storytelling quality, animation quality.
I mean,
yeah.
Anybody knows that except at least one or two three-piece suit CEOs out there who thinks they are a big business guy and therefore know things.
Well, and I mean, luckily, in my opinion, this has been a lot of Disney's success in the last 10 years is that the people running Pixar and largely it seems like the people running Disney have a different and better attitude than that. Yeah. And that's why we've been getting so many good projects from those people.
Or in fact, Pixar kind of showed Disney the way that it used to follow.
But I think that's a lot of why they replaced their CEO when they did, and the guy they brought, I forget his name, but the guy they brought in, who has a lot more of that Pixar kind of mentality. I mean, you look at the way that Disney has been handling Marvel and handling Star Wars, and they just have this much more classy way of selling things and keeping things in the public consciousness, where they do seem to be kind of trying to deliver quality now.
And it wasn't for a while. It was not like that.
I'm not saying everything they're doing is good. I don't like their. I don't like the live action redo of their old animated stuff at all. I don't like that they're doing that. Or if they do it, I wish they'd do it better than I've seen it so far. But I don't like that at all. So I mean, there's missteps. There's stuff I don't like, but
I don't think even the good things that Disney has done in the last few years would have happened had not Pixar come along and done what it has done, and as well and as successfully as it has.
And I want to say we've made this
owe them a lot.
This point before. You're absolutely right about that. I think it is fascinating the somewhat close proximity. What is it? A couple of years between Brave and Frozen. I wanted to bring that up because Frozen was in a way Disney's attempt at breaking its own formula also, and became, in my opinion, and I liked that movie a lot when I first saw it. I haven't seen it again because I don't know if I could stand having to listen to some of the songs again. Not because I didn't, not because I hate them, but because they became too popular and I got sick of hearing them. But it was Lion King all over again. But even crazier than that. But and then of course we're gonna have to sit through a sequel now. But with that, like
Frozen.
Even Frozener. See that you need a Pixar crossover there where Frozone shows up in that universe. That's what needs to happen.
Too fast, too Frozen.
But we need Sam Jackson in the Frozen sequel. That's
Frozen 2: Attack of the Clones.
or you do the alien thing where it's Frozen and Frozens.
Yeah. Ooh.
But
Frozen and Frozener.
But what I think is fascinating about that is when I saw Frozen, the more I was thinking about it, the more I was like, okay, it tried to break its formula kind of with how it handles the princess thing, but then it kind of became its own callable.
Yeah.
Where, like, once I got to the end of that and saw where they were going with it, the writing was on the wall, and then it became its own kind of predictable, and it was almost as if they were inventing a new Disney formula. It was like, and then they'll probably be like this now. To do. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I'm just saying that it's really interesting watching this after Frozen instead of having seen this before, because I think I would have liked Frozen less had I seen this first.
Very possibly. Because here again, Pixar doing the same thing.
Because you can see in this
that
they are deliberately you can see underneath this deliberately sort of look at us. This is not what you've seen before, but in the way Pixar always has been, where it's simply look at us. We have character depth and some dimension. It's not a gimmicky thing. With Frozen, it really felt the whole way through like look at us. We're not doing what you expected.
We're talking about look at us. This is different because we've done something better and deeper, instead of look at us. This is something different because we've made a superficial change.
Yeah, which is almost like and again, I like Frozen,
the difference between the anachronism humor.
To a degree, but I think I've liked it less the more I thought about it. I mean, because that seems almost bragging, where this seems almost more. Okay, almost more of like an apology thing at the beginning, where it's like no, I know you think you've seen this before, but just hold on, like just trust us, like.
Yeah, you saw the logo, you know we're better than that.
But anyway, so ultimately, I think I like it more the more we're talking about it. It's definitely not even midway one of their best movies, I don't think. But I really like the point you made about the title.
Yeah, give this a different title. Give this a different title.
Take away the bookend.
Get rid of the voiceovers and the bookends. You know what? You can leave the footage of her riding horseback through the Scottish countryside. Fine.
It's pretty. And
yeah, that's fun to look at and perfectly agreeable. Take off the voiceovers with a fake philosophy.
I think some of the slow-mo was maybe a little too much. They only did it a couple times, but it did seem a little bit egregious both times. I don't know.
Well, although the slow motion arrow shot, yeah, it was a little heavy-handed, but you know what? They've earned it. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And
but
that is how arrows work.
But the horse jump struck me as, check it out, we can animate this many hairs at the bottom of the horse's legs. Check that out.
That felt more like, hey, it's a rap video to me.
Yeah, or just showing off.
We'll play with stopping motion randomly.
But anyway,
reverse it sometimes.
Well, that's about all I had to say about it. Do you have anything else, or are we good on this one? Okay.
I think our due diligence is done.
Well, we would love to know what you folks thought of Brave, so feel free to leave your comments. And as I said, if I see this again, I'm likely to have a different, somewhat of a different take on it. But that's me right out the gate. And Geoff, I'm glad you'd seen it a few times to kind of give us both those perspectives on it. And next time we're going to do Monsters University, so come back for that. And then after that, we are going to have one more when, as we said, when Inside Out comes to video, and then Geoff and I, when we can find time to get back together, because I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, and we're finally getting this wrapped up.
It's been a bear's age.
But we're gonna come back, and for anybody who is interested, we're gonna do another series going through the albums of They Might Be Giants. TMG is one of my and Jeff's favorite bands. We actually discovered when we did a Weird Al video a couple of years ago that as far as rock bands go, we both have these exact same top three and in the exact same order. And Jeff and I are both in this order big fans of Team BG, Weird Al, and then REM. Yep. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. So anyway, we're gonna do. We'd probably honestly get more interest in this if we were doing Weird Al, Jeff. But maybe I don't know. Maybe down the road. But
in the fullness of time.
Yeah. But we really want to talk some TBG. So for anybody that likes that band and is interested in that, come back. The 12 of you. And in the meantime, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm a bear.
That is a bear.
And I'm the Geoff.
He has no name apparently. Thanks for watching, folks.
I'm riding through a movie on a bear with no name.